Hey guys! It's about that time when I do another top 10 video. This one's going to be the top 10 best albums of 2017. Without further ado, I'm gonna hop into the honorable mentions, and then we're gonna hop into the actual top 10. And here are the honorable mentions. Let's just knock them out nice and quick. Don't want this video to be long. Let's do it. The first honorable mention I would like to shout out is the mixtape slash album Trillium 3 by Aha Gazelle, or just Aha. Aha is a Christian rapper who used to be on Reach Records. This was distributed through Reach, and I think this is the best project that captures Aha's really fun energy and personality. I think out of all the Christian rappers, Aha is one of the most interesting. I don't think his output has been great since this project. He's done very little, mostly just singles and like an EP or two, and they haven't been great. But this album is still pretty awesome, and I still really like it. It's fun, it's funny, and it's got a ton of personality. Next, I would like to talk about Goths by the Mountain Goats. I don't actually have a ton to say about this album, because I haven't listened to it that much, but Rain in Soho is easily one of the best songs of 2017. It's an amazing song. Forever is a Mighty Long Time is one of the best rap albums of this year. It is a southern-tinged it's a southern rap album with that Mississippi vibe, and you got to be representing Mississippi. It's pretty epic. It's pretty great for what it is. And then you have Brockhampton 3. This is my favorite Brockhampton project. I used to say it's Ginger. That album I liked less and less the more I listened to it. Brockhampton, I liked more and more the more I listened to it. At first it's very fun, but then you realize it's a very deep and personal album, and has a lot of substance as well as a lot of style. And then Play Dead by Mute Math. The Radiohead influence on this album is very, very obvious. They wear their influences. Mute Math wears their influences on their sleeve on this album. But it's a great imitation. If you like Radiohead, even if you don't like Radiohead, I'd recommend this. It's a little bit more fun, I would say, than Radiohead is. But it's a great alternative album, either way you look at it. And then, I'm sorry, Melodrama by Lorde. This is a hot take. I don't actually love this album. For me, it's kind of hard to get the hype. I can see that it's great. It's just hard to say that it's one of the best albums ever made. And a lot of people say it's one of the best albums ever made. And I'm just like, bro, it doesn't rhyme. Some of the songs don't even rhyme. Yeah, sorry about that. And then Revival by Third Day, the best Christian contemporary music album. It's a southern Christian album from a band that had a very long stay in Christian contemporary music, and this was their swan song, their final album. It is their most southern album, I would say. It's really just a feel great album. Not a feel good album, it's a feel great album. Give it a shot. It's kind of niche, but if this is your thing, if southern Christian rock is your thing, definitely listen to this album. That was a lot. Glad I can slow down and talk about the album 444 by JayZ. 444 is one of the most raw and personal and revealing rap albums I have ever heard. It's so personal, and it's so honest. It's also one of the most honest. It's really just JayZ, like, peeling the persona away and us taking a look at Sean Carter, the personality, the human being behind the impossibly huge, famous gangster persona. This is a very human album, and not everybody's gonna love it. Not everybody's gonna like it. It's my thing, though. The production is great from No ID. It's just a really amazing rap album, in my opinion. Landmark by Hippocampus. I think this is probably the most underrated album of this year. Probably the most underrated album of 2017. Everything else on here has gotten critical acclaim from certain publications. This one has not. Landmark is literally, what this is this brand of, upbeat pop rock, or upbeat indie pop. Indie pop rock. It's literally just, there's a huge umbrella of artists underneath this subgenre of this upbeat indie rock that, upbeat indie pop or indie rock that, teen girls really like. It's a whole subgenre. There's a bunch of artists underneath this umbrella, but this is just that. It is 100% that genre, but done to the best possible way, like almost done to like a fine art. It's so well tuned, it's so fine tuned and so consistent. It's so consistent. It's creative. It's at the same time you're listening to it and it doesn't feel that extraordinary. It doesn't feel that like groundbreaking, and it's not. But what it is just insanely high quality and insanely good. This is such a good album. You need to listen to Landmark by Hippocampus. You probably won't regret it. It's so underrated. The Beauty Between was a very weird direction for King's Kaleidoscope. King's Kaleidoscope is kind of this very artsy, underground Christian contemporary music band that is, defined by very passionate vocals and very creative music that comes from, I think it's like a 10-piece band when they record. They have tons of woodwinds and just very diverse instrumentation. And The Beauty Between was King's Kaleidoscope's, that's hard to say, experiment with rap. A fusion of rap and rock. Rap and their version of what they call music. Their specific, the King's Kaleidoscope brand of gospel and Christian music fused with rap, and that fusion was so good. And I'm telling you, the flow of this album, this is the best flow of any of the albums on this list. All of the songs flow into each other, and it all makes sense in the context of the album, and this album really just feels, it's so cohesive. This is an extremely cohesive, it really feels like an album. Rather than a collection of songs, this is an album. It makes a case for albums in general, is just how well this album works and flows, and how many highlights. It's a really great project. It's really not for everybody, but I love it. Sleep Well Beast by The National won the Grammy for Best Alternative Music Album this year. It beat out Pure Comedy, which I don't agree with, as you'll see later on this list, but wow, this is fantastic. This is so good. This is the first national album I ever listened to, and man, I still haven't really listened to their discography. I'll do that sometimes, where I'll listen to a really amazing album by an artist who has a bunch of other albums, and I haven't heard their other albums, and I just don't listen to their other albums because I don't care. I'm just gonna sit with this. I love this. It's a very dark and moody alternative album, which also has some really upbeat, really gargantuan highlights and some very complex instrumentation, some very ambitious instrumentation. Extremely well written, extremely well sung. This is just a great album through and through. I have never been a brand new fan, just like with The National, and this is an album that is very much in the exact same lane as Sleep Well Beast. It is one of those really dark alternative rock albums, or an album that will, if you're a National fan, you'll like this album, or if you're a brand new fan, you'll like the National album, like guaranteed, I'm sure. It's very much in the same lane. I do think this is better, because this is more complex in my opinion with the lyrics and the music and the whole vibe of the album. It's a very complicated album. It's one that takes a ton of listens to really unpack. And that's what I love about it. I love albums that are this rewarding on repeat listens, like where you find something new each time, because it's such a dense album. It's such a dense listen. And for that, I just, I love it for that. I love albums that are like this, that you just continue, that are multi-layered, and you can continue to peel back the layers as you listen to it more and more. Give this thing a shot. You probably won't regret it, but then again, you might not like it. Whatever. Flower Boy is my favorite Tyler, the Creator album. A lot of people say Igor is his best album, which is his newest. It actually won the Grammy for Best Rap Album in 2019, which I was very happy about. That was my pick. Not my favorite rap album of that year. Didn't even make my top 10 list, honestly. But it was still a great album. I'll stand by that. I actually did a video on it. I'll link that in the description if I remember. But I think it's a great album. And Flower Boy's better. Flower Boy is actually something that I can describe Flower Boy with an adjective I can't really describe like barely any rap albums with, and that adjective is beautiful. This is a beautiful album. It's elegant, it's lush, it's just like the imagery of the tracks. It's, the concept or theme of this is this kind of gardening, nature kind of theme, and it's fantastic. it's fantastic. This album is warm and beautiful and comforting and just amazing in like every single possible way. It's amazing. A Crow Looked at Me is the most devastating, emotionally devastating album of 2017. It's about Mount Erie's loss of his wife. And it's hard to listen to. It's a very, very, very painful album where the pain feels so real and in your face and also so stark and just so... The instrumentation on this album is very, very stark. And once again, this is something that not everybody's going to like, but it's really impossible to deny the emotional effectiveness of this album. I think this is, emotionally speaking, the best album of 2017, the most emotionally effective. And it's really just a great album in general. Only complaint I could have for this is that the songs themselves all kind of sound the same. They all are, just a very stark instrumentation. But it's still a great album. Crooked. This is a Propaganda album. Propaganda is a Humble Beast rapper. Humble Beast. You gotta love Humble Beast. And you gotta love Propaganda. Excellent was a pretty great album released, I think, in 2012, 2011, 2013. I don't know exactly. But that album really is what turned me on to Propaganda. It was such a good album, such a creative album, so original, so creative. It really mixed spoken word with rap. It was a lot of spoken word type stuff and just really poetic and really vivid imagery and some really interesting themes. And that is cranked up to an 11. All the things that made Excellent great are on this, and it's just fantastic. It's so dark and so uncomfortable at times, but it's also very important, and just this is just one of the best albums of the decade. It's amazing. Damn by Kendrick Lamar. This feels insane to say this, but this is actually a very underrated album. The fans are all sleeping on this album, man. Kendrick Lamar fans, people who love To Pimp a Butterfly, people who love Good Kid, Mad City, are sleeping on this album, and it's so sad because it's so good. Honestly, it's really just a matter of how high the highs are, because most of these songs just reach this insanely high that's just so amazing. I don't actually love the song Humble. I don't love the song God. I don't love every song on this album. I don't love the song Love. I don't even love the song Loyalty. Like, all of these songs are not my favorite, but that just is a testament to how high the highs are on this album, because the highs on this thing are some of the best. It's some of the best music of the decade. I mean, seriously, it is. And some of the best stuff Kendrick Lamar has made, which is saying a lot because Kendrick Lamar is amazing. He's my favorite rapper, and he just really pulled through with this album. It's utterly fantastic in every possible way. You have to check this out. I'm sure you already have. I'm sure you already heard this, but whatever. It's amazing, and I'm going to say it. I don't care what Fantano thinks. I've talked about this album before on my best albums of the decade. I've talked about it on my best... I've done a separate review for this album. I'll try to link both of those things in the description if I remember. I don't usually remember, but maybe I will. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, this is like my favorite thing in the world. One of my favorite things. It might be my second favorite album of all time. Maybe. Even though I wouldn't even give this a perfect score. Like, this was my favorite album of the decade, and I wouldn't give it a 5, because I do think it is flawed. I think there are things wrong with it, but what this album is and if you don't know, Pure Comedy is a brutal takedown of the human race, which is exactly my thing. It dives into philosophy and psychology and everything, literally everything. Yeah, it's over an hour long. It has a perfect start with Pure Comedy and a perfect end within 20 years or so. I'm going to stop talking about it because I could talk about it for an hour. Honestly, I could. It was my favorite album of the decade. What am I going to say? Anyway, that's it. That's my favorite album of 2017. Needle Drop actually got it right. All right. This is the only time I'm ever going to agree with Needle Drop. Ever. When it comes to the best album of the year for whatever year. I'm never, no. I've always, my lists have always looked so different from his. It's really interesting when you compare scores. Even with 2020, if you look at some of my top 10 albums of that year, some of the albums I'm enjoying the most, like the Tame Impala album, the Fiona Apple album, both albums that he did not give very positive scores to, which is unfortunate. Thanks for watching the video. It's time to go. Have a great rest of your day.